this is like just as obviously a disclaimer. Um, for the next hour and a half, we're talking from our experiences, we're talking from our opinions, and we're talking, from what we've had to go through and what we've had to live through. Everyone else is going to be different. No one's the same. We're not saying that what we've said is right or what we're saying is wrong. And I want to just cover that. Some people might disagree, and that's absolutely fine. We tried to keep it as much on a sort of level field as possible. We didn't step into too many sort of touchy areas or anything, but we said what we felt we needed to say. If you disagree with any of it, let us know, man, because it's interesting. And we want to. One thing that Ben and I was talking about was potentially getting some women in and doing this from a female perspective as well, because obviously 4 blokes talking about it is predominantly going to be a very male thing, and they're going to have very different experiences. So that's something that we might do in the future, depending on what the feedback is on this. If you feel negative about it, let us know, please. We do read all the comments. We do look at all the feedback. Obviously, there's no need to be nasty about it, though, because from the perspective of all 4 of us, something like this is actually quite difficult to come out about, whether that be because you're a teacher, a normal working man, a student, or a public figure. These are all quite difficult to do, and that's why I wanted the 4 aspects and the 4 perspectives of all of us. So anyway, enjoy it, man. You're going to see the intro now. There's timestamps. We're only covering depression and anxiety in this one as part 1. So thank you and enjoy. Okay, what's good? My name is Halford Sucks, or Charley. I am a streamer, a full-time streamer, full-time content creator, and I guess the way I'm going to be talking to you is in the eyes of other people as like a public figure. I hate that term, but it's probably the most round up term that you're going to get regarding this. And I thought for this topic, we wanted to record it back and be able to edit it in case we maybe went on a tangent that wasn't necessarily, try and keep it as concise and trigger-free as possible. So we're going to have timestamps in, etc., etc., etc. Consider this an introduction. And I'll pass on to you, Ben. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing?
Hello, I am Poshman Chav, otherwise known as Ben. I am 21 years old and I am currently studying biomedical engineering at university. I like to think that through this I can give you the opinion of a student, of someone who's been in education and in that environment for the past God knows how many years of my life. So hopefully that'll be useful or relatable in some regard. I'll pass it on to you, El.
Cheers, mate. Hi, I'm Elliot. I'm a mod for Charley in the stream. I've worked in primary schools with special educational needs children and certain families. I've had certain training on mental health and grief. I've also experienced a lot of it during my life, and currently working as a childminder close with an autistic child and a single parent, which is quite opening as to what the other side as like what families and how children can be affected by mental health. But I'll pass it on to you, Pud.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for that. Save the best for last, I suppose. So I'm Pud. Or Jay, everybody you'd like to say hello or hi. So I still have a full-time job as well as working alongside Charley on the page and whatnot. You see me moderating in chat and everything. So I guess my perspective is from the normal person like yours, I suppose.
Average Joe.
So, average Joe.
the average Joe, but the above average Pud.
Hey, you love to see it.
All right, so I must have been. Well, let's start with the tooth. I think the tooth kind of impacted me quite a lot. I must have been 20, 21 maybe max. My brother, who was probably like 16, 17 at the time, threw a party. Parents knew about it. He said there was like 50 people coming, like 200 people turned up. It was fucking crazy. Like, honestly, it was a sick party. Like, I had like 8 of my mates there. We were just getting drunk, we had beer pong. Like, everybody was just fucking raving. Like, it was sick. And then, you could hear the music from town because I live like 5 minutes away. If that, like, it was attracting attention. And like some junkies turned up, and like they just pushed their way through the door. You got like some 15-year-old kid like hanging halfway through the door. It's just like, yeah, you know, like 6 of them just kind of walked in, started making a commotion, and then they come through to the kitchen, and then like. So you have to go through the kitchen to the garden. There's kind of some context. So we cut them off in the kitchen. We had a bit of a brawl. Don't really remember much, but eventually one of them picked up a stool and like basically was ramming it around, and he hit my face. So a tooth come just fucking clean out. I'm like KO'd. Some like my mates just dragged me outside. What I think's like 5 minutes gone by is like an hour. An ambulance turns up, takes me in. At this point, I'm like covered in blood in a pimp suit, like out of my face, sitting in steaming and it's just like, yeah, not a good place to be. Anyway, I had like loads of treatment over the next couple of weeks. I couldn't save the tooth, so I had to have a denture put in, which eventually I probably gave it about 6 months and gave up with it. But inconveniently, I was working in a primary school as well, so like, it was Easter break when this happened. So you can imagine before Easter, I had a full set of teeth, and then coming back into work with one of the front ones missing quite drastically, and like a busted up mouth was, you know, raised quite a lot of questions. And at the time, I kind of took it in my stride. I was very much like, yeah, you know, whatever about it. But deep down, like it like not having a tooth was frightening. Like looking at yourself in the mirror, like this is fucking weird. Like to begin with, now I'm used to it. Like I just walk around and smile at people, like it's nothing. Do you know what I mean? But in the beginning, it was like I'd smile, and then people would look at me like, "Whoa, what the fuck?" And then I would start to hide my smile eventually, like, and then I obviously got over that, but that kind of like sets the mood as to where we're going to go. Then like 21 and a half, maybe 22 rolls round, meet a girl, you know, everything's going great. She starts to become financially stable on me. Then she starts to emotionally abuse me. And then it kind of like 2 years on, kind of like split up. She goes off with someone else. I was distraught. And then kind of everything else started to go wrong. It was like a big old spiral. Like obviously I was upset, and then I started arguing with the family, and then I didn't start. Like it was a period where I didn't stay at home 5 days of the week. Like I would only go home at weekends, and then even then it would be scarce. I'd probably go home on a Friday night about 12 o'clock, 1 in the morning. Get up Saturday, go out, and then I would go home kind of early hours Sunday morning, and then Sunday night, if I could, I would stay out at a friend's and go, and then repeat it. And that probably went on for about 6 weeks, I'd say. Like, and at that point, I started heavily smoking as well. And I think it was my mum. Like, my mum rang me one day, and she was like, "You've got to come home. Like, this isn't okay." And I was like, "Nah, you'll be all right. Don't worry about it." Just kind of like, fuck off.
Brushed it off.
We had like, you know, we had a bus that I hadn't quite forgiven them. I was still a little bit salty about things. And then it was someone at work that I was actually quite close to kind of pulled me aside and was like, "You're not yourself. Like you haven't been yourself for weeks. What's going on?" And I just broke down in front of them. I was just like, "My life's a wreck. You know, like I don't want to be here anymore." Like I used to wake up in the morning and I just think about killing myself. I think like that's the point I got to. Like by the end of the 6 weeks, I was, and like put it in perspective, I was waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning, probably going to bed at about 3, getting to work for 8:30. So I was like giving myself half an hour to wake up, and then, you know, I'd be depressed as fuck. I'd look like shit. I wouldn't care. Wasn't like. I didn't care if I showered or not. I was dressing in like creased up clothes because I was just packing bags for the week, and I was going into like a school teaching probably 5 to 8 year olds like their core phonics, like, and I was putting on a positive, like I was being positive. I was putting on a smile for like that entire hour. Then afterwards, I would just like you break down again. I just like it's so emotionally draining to try and be positive in and like when you're just feeling like pure shit and you don't care about anything. Like when you're in that mindset, there is nothing you care about. There's nothing to live for. Do you know what I mean? Like nothing matters. And eventually I sat down. I think it was my assistant head. She kind of brought me aside and she was like, right, you are going to the doctors tomorrow and you are going to tell them everything you just told me and you're going to go from there. So in the morning I booked a doctor's appointment. I think I booked it for, I didn't tell them like straight up. I think I booked it for like, I said my fucking back hurt or some shit like that. Yeah. Got in there, talked to the doctor about it, and then when she was done, she was like, all right, you ready? And I just looked her dead in the face and I just said, no, I want to kill myself. And she was like, fuck.
Here we go.
Yeah,
that's a mood setter. That's a mood setter.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
She was like, right, well, and and at that point, that when your weight comes off your shoulders, that was the tipping point. Like it didn't immediately feel better. In fact, probably for the next 3 hours, it felt worse because I had to I rang my work up. I got signed off for a couple of weeks or whatever it was. And I rang them up and I was in tears on the phone to my manager because I'd never been signed off work. I didn't know what to expect from it. And, she was really, really good. And she, explained everything and told me to take it easy and I could have as much time as I want. And to be honest, that was probably like summer of when I was 22. I probably took about 6 weeks in total, I think, for that depression. I come back and I felt a lot better, but in that 6 weeks, I went through a lot. Like, I had nothing to do. All my friends, I felt isolated because I hadn't talked to my friends in, months. I hadn't bothered to see them. I hadn't bothered to message anyone or reply, so no one really wanted to be about. And then when I did open up to them, it was like the hardest thing I'd ever done. It was like telling the people you're competing with in life, do you know what I mean, secretly, because you want to do your friends one up, do you know what I mean?
Of course,
and it's almost like admitting that you're inferior in a way, even though you're not inferior when you have depression. You feel
natural.
And one of them actually took it in the wrong way. He had a big argument with me, and I didn't see his message until the next morning. And he'd said some nasty stuff, and I said, "You know what? I'm fed up with this shit." I'm fed up of being stereotyped as like needing to man up. Like this is fucking bullshit. Yeah. So I literally replied to him. I was like, "Do you know what? How good would you feel if I killed myself over that?" And he was like, "Do it." I was like, "I hope your fucking kid dies." I was like, and that riled him. And I was like, if your fucking kid dies, like, I was pissed off. Was unborn at this point. I said, then you'll know how I feel.
Yeah. It's easy
and
to
then
say
you know how I feel,
moment, of course, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do regret it, and I did apologise to him deeply. But in the spur of the moment, I was like, if that happens, you'll know how I feel, and then you'll know how much those words impact me.
Yeah.
And I was like, and at that point, and only that point only, can you fucking say something to me?
Yeah.
And like at that point, like they all kind of, and still to this day, they don't step on my toes about mental health at all because I bite back so fiercely about it. And let's say, what is it? Like I'm fucking 26 now. So I probably only about a year and a half ago kind of really got over depression. It took a lot of my life over. So, changed jobs about a year and a half ago, which kind of really changed things. It was better aspirations. It was, different things to do. I was more active. I got a dog as well, Storm. She changed my life. Definitely recommend getting a dog. Like 100%. They will change your life. They are a cunt, but they will change your life.
Obviously.
But yeah, and like the effects of depression from spending that amount of my life, because there is a lot in there that I didn't talk about because we would be here literally all night if we wanted to go on that.
Yeah, of course.
And it's kind of weird because it's hard to kind of remember it all in a way because you do try and forget it.
Yeah.
And no one, and not one point, because I have to other people, but not at one point has someone come up to me, friend, randomer, counsellor, and said, what's the trauma been in your life? Like, why are you so upset? Because it's not normalised.
That's the thing. And as someone I would consider myself knowing you quite well at this point, we've spent countless hours on the phone, etc. You aren't the sort of person that comes across as like deeply sad or depressed or anything. You're an incredibly cheerful person, at least on the surface. Obviously, it's hard to say that without, some of this I didn't know prior to this conversation, etc. I knew about bits of it. It's incredible to see, because anyone that sees you in stream, sees you in person. You are amazing. I cannot praise you enough, El, when it comes to talking to people about you. Just the kind of person you are, because you are incredible. Do you know what I mean? And you don't strike people as someone who has had necessarily a particularly bad time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
it just goes to show that depression can kind of manifest itself in different ways and affect people differently. I mean, would you still consider yourself someone who is, I don't really like saying it like this, but depressed now? Or is it just the odd bad day? Is it just a bad day, or is it a day where you are kind of back on the edge and you're like, fuck this?
It kind of comes in like steps and stages. Like coming out of it, it was very much like the way I am now was the way I came out of depression, because I decided that if I can help one person not feel the way I did, then I would. Because when I was really fucking depressed, and I used to go out of the house and just cry in alleyways, wanting to kill myself, and not doing it because my friends and my family, I couldn't bear it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just wish I had someone there. Do you know what I mean? So I always now I was like, right, I'm gonna be that person.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna be there for other people. I'm gonna be that positive energy in other people's lives. And it took a long time. Do you know? It wasn't like it changed overnight. And a lot of it is mindset.
Yeah.
So if and my depression nowadays, it comes in stages. Like if I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, my day is fucking shit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm bad mood, bad day, bad mindset. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that starts to affect the next day and the day after that, until at one point I'm like, wow, I'm rolling down a very steep hill right now.
Almost kind of relapsing back to what you had allowed yourself to become the first time around. Yeah.
Yeah. And you just got to kind of it's hard, but you got to kind of take that step back and go, right, just wipe the slate clean. Let's move on from whatever it was and let's go again.
100%. That's good, man. That's good. It's nice to open up about these things every now and then, because like you said, you never had someone there. And that's one thing that anyone that knows you either in person or through the stream will credit you for, is the fact that you are amazingly supportive, regardless of who it is. I've seen you be there for people that you've never met. Before you'd ever met me, you was there in ways that people that I've known for years have never been there for me. And you and I have had this conversation before, and I've said to you, if it ever gets to a point where it's affecting you, what are you going to do? And I just want you to kind of elaborate on that as well. Like, does it ever have a negative impact on you? Because from experience myself, it's amazingly draining. Despite putting on a smiling face, it's amazingly draining having people come to you with their issues all the time. Do you kind of experience that as well?
I completely agree with you. It's like, when you start to create like a support network per se, and you reach out to, let's use a stream for example. You reach out to people in streams and you say, I'm always here to chat, and eventually, say someone inboxes you one week, and then the next week another person, it adds up. Say you got 5 or 6 people. And, it might not be constantly 5 or 6, but then there's 1 or 2 days where all 6 of them might have a really bad day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that would be the one day that you're having a bad day.
Yeah.
And it is incredibly hard to sit there and be like, because on that day, you're like, I don't give a fuck about your problems because I got my own right now. Do you know what I mean? But you got to kind of, when you put yourself in that scenario, you got to kind of take a step back and be like, right, well, I offered my support. And although it's like you're not obliged to be there for them, it's okay to say to them, well, actually, I'm having a bad time right now.
Course.
Can I get back to you on this? Or you just don't have to be as elaborate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could just be like, right, today's a bad day. I hope it gets better. I'm busy today. I'll message you tomorrow.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, like aggressive towards them. You don't have to blank them. You still kind of be supportive, but
there's different ways of being supportive.
Step back from it. Yeah. You let them know that today's not the right time, but you will be there. You will get back to them.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips? Because personally, if people come to me and they say, hello, I'm having a shit day or something, and I'm having a terrible day, my first instinct is to just bin off my whole problems entirely and then focus on them.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for, getting into that mindset where you can just say, hey, really sorry, but, I can't really deal with this right now?
It's a difficult one as well, because I completely agree with you. Like, helping other people is much easier than helping yourself. Do you know what I mean? It takes the stress away. It takes the problems away. You haven't got that anxiety about what you're worrying about because you're so focused on who else you're helping. And it's almost like you have to learn to prioritize yourself in kind of day-to-day basis. Like, I found one thing that really helped me, and it's a very niche thing, but it was doing the dishwasher. I used to, if I saw the dishes were dirty, I'd do the dishwasher. I'd load it, I'd unload it, I'd put it on, whatever. And I'd do it every single day. And after I started doing the dishwasher, I started cooking. And after I started cooking, I started washing. And I started washing, started taking the dogs out twice a day. And it just slowly progressed. And then I started prioritizing those things in my life over what else was going on.
Yeah.
If that kind of makes sense. So like, I might be on the phone to someone, the dishes were dirty, I put the phone down, still be on the phone to them, still talking, but the dishes were the priority right then.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you've got to start off small, because if you overload yourself and like you set massive targets, like in anything, you're gonna get disheartened when you can't achieve them, and then that puts you back several steps than where you're going. And then next time it rolls around that you want to try it, you're going to have a flashback like, well, this didn't work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
No, fair enough. That makes sense. I'll try.
Do the dishes.
Yeah. My mum will love that.
I think one thing that's like really important to take away from being this is, like you said, you're an incredibly supportive person for other people, but you can't support other people if you can't look after yourself. And that's why, even though it kind of sounds selfish, I personally am a firm believer in looking after yourself over anyone else. And because at the end of the day, it makes things incredibly hard, if not impossible, to look after other people if you're not in a position where you can say to yourself, I'm okay. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And but this is the thing, and this is it's a really kind of cliche way of saying it, but it is okay to not be okay, and it is cliche. You'll have heard it in other places, but I stand by that. Do you know what I mean? If you're having a bad day, that's fine, but don't. Only you can change that for yourself. Do you know what I mean? Only you can turn around and say, I'm having a bad day. I'm not going to let this affect tomorrow. Tomorrow is a new day. Yes, it might be one of those days. Sod's Law has gone into effect and I've woken up on the wrong side of the bed. I've got in the car won't start, or I've gone to fucking brush my teeth and my toothbrush is dull. I've got no toothpaste left. Do you know what I mean? It's little things like that. Everything that can go wrong can go wrong. Only you can turn around and say, well, I knew I was going to run out of toothpaste. I'll buy some when I go out. I'll have to fault not brushing my teeth this morning. Only you're the only person in your life that can change how you live your life. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You can talk to people and that can help you through it. But ultimately, any decisions that need to be made, any actual changes that need to happen to you, have to happen because you've made that conscious decision to make that change happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and once you've done it, it's important to recognize that and reward yourself for it. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Give yourself achievement for doing things.
Yeah, 100%. One fucking 1,000%. But you got anything else to add to that, El?
Nah, I'm good.
Either of you lads got anything to add on El's topic there?
Yeah, but even just talking, even if you don't want to talk to someone, but like having a sort of friendly conversation with someone that you know might even put you back in that mindset of doing something to better yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%.
So like if you can't find a goal at that point in time, maybe just sit back, just chat with your friends or anything. You don't have to elaborate anything, but even just maybe just talking to them.
Yeah.
Like just a general conversation. Like if we weren't sitting here doing this right now, we could be sitting here talking about it, but not directly talking about it. You sort of get my drift.
Yeah.
Like just having a general conversation. Like,
well, that's the thing. I mean, how many times have the three of us, the four of us, two of us? I couldn't even begin to think the amount of occasions where I've sat on the phone to one of you, either in tears or even just talking about something else when you don't even know that there's a problem going on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And little things like that can help. Do you know what I mean? Just because you're having a problem doesn't mean you have to talk about that problem. Sometimes talking to a friend or doing something with someone, I know that's incredibly hard in lockdown and we're going to touch on that later on. But doing something with someone or like even playing a game, whatever, is sometimes a really, really good way of just making uplifting yourself. And it's not trying to push it to one side. Please don't like push these negative emotions to one side, because all you'll do is bottle it up and it will come back and bite you in the arse later. You still have to deal with it, but it's easier to deal with it if you're in a better mindset. And the only way you can get yourself in a better mindset is to take yourself out of that negative one and place yourself somewhere else, whether that be through talking to someone about something completely fucking irrelevant, or whether that be through playing a game or whatever. When you come back an hour later, 2 hours later or whatever, you're going to feel slightly more uplifted, slightly more upbeat and more ready to deal with something like that, because sometimes it can be really hard to deal with it when it's the only prominent thing on your mind, because it's cloudy, isn't it? Even though it's the only thing that's there, it's cloudy. It's really easy to get lost and wrapped up in this horrible ball of emotions and this horrible, like, self-loathing a lot of the time as well. Do you know what I mean? And that's really hard to combat. All the while, that is your primary focus. You have to kind of take yourself out of that situation, almost go third person for a little bit and just say, this is what's wrong. This is what I need to address. And this is how I want to do it. You know what I mean?
100%, yeah.
So, Ben, have either of you got a story you want to tell, or like a...
Well, I've got something that I'd like to tack on to the end of that.
Yeah, go for it.
Which, whilst I fully agree, if you don't feel like you're in the mindset to talk about something, yes, it is a good idea to try and, talk to someone else. Not necessarily take your mind off it, but as you've said, get yourself in a better place where you can at least come at it from more of a stable mindset than maybe you could have done before. But one thing that I have struggled with multiple times is when you're in that shit situation, especially the first time you do it, it's going to be really difficult. But when you're in that shit situation, is actually taking advantage and taking advantage is the wrong word, but it's the only one I can think of. But actually using that support network that you have. If you have friends or family that turn around to you and say, I'm here for you whenever you need me, don't sit there and do what I did basically and feel like I cannot talk about this because I'm just going to inconvenience them. I'm just going to be a pain in the arse. They've got things they want to do. The last thing they want to hear is me moaning about some trivial bollocks that relatively I shouldn't be sad about, kind of thing. And the first time that I did that, I did it to my mum, and I felt like an absolute wanker for doing it. But then, arguably, that was one of the best things I've ever done. And I now constantly annoy Charley with my stories and my problems in life. But it's a two-way street in the way that I know that I'm always going to be there for him. And I like to think that he knows that as well.
Yeah, of course.
So one thing that is worth remembering is when you have that support network of people you can talk to them because they are there for you, because you would be there for them. if someone comes to me with a problem, the last thing I think is, oh, for fuck's sake, not again. It's okay. Let's try and cheer them up.
Yeah.
Even if you can't necessarily solve the problem, you just sitting there and listening to them can help. And in the same vein, that could be all you need as well, is talking to someone and just getting it out there. Because I've had multiple times myself where I've gone to someone with a problem. I know they can't solve it. I know it's either something I've got to do or just something I've got to get over. And just talking about it and getting it out there has helped me immensely. It hasn't fixed it, but it stopped me lying in bed and doing nothing all day, every day, and got me at least a little bit more back to normal. Yeah. So I think that's worth considering when you're in that shit state. Don't be afraid to talk to people and don't feel like you're going to be a pain in the arse to them. Yeah, because you're not. They're there to care for you as you are to care for them.
Well, that's exactly the thing. If you want to talk to someone and reach out to someone, that's perfectly okay to do. And sometimes that is incredibly hard, might I add, to say these sorts of things to people who know you very well. Do you know what I mean? It can be harder to do that than it can be to a stranger. And it was actually brought up in chat earlier when we was talking about topics regarding this, what people wanted to see. One of the things that someone said was they wanted to know why I have a message that comes up in chat every 30 minutes that says you're not alone, and if you ever need anyone to talk to, you can message the page or the team or whatever, reach out to us in Discord. The point in that is, from my perspective, and I hadn't really thought about this because it was just, to me, it was just something I would do. I would be there for my friends and my family, and I consider that everyone that's a part of the stream a friend or a family until you're an arsehole, and then you can fuck off. But irrelevant at that point, provided you are a member of the community, I would consider you family, I would consider you a friend, and I will be there for you. And that's why I do it, because I've once again been in a position where, despite having some of my closest friends nearby, people that you've known for years, you kind of feel like they're going to begrudge you or think differently of you, and they're not. They're really not. I've had these conversations with very long-term friends of mine that I've known for years. I've explained my feelings, etc., and they've not thought of me any different. Maybe tread lightly around me a little bit, just in case, so they don't say something that might tip me over the edge or whatever, but they're not going to think any different of you. But that's really hard to get in your head when you're in this one set mind track of fuck this, fuck life, fuck everything. And that's why sometimes talking to a complete fucking stranger on the internet that knows absolutely nothing about you, sometimes talking to a stranger of the internet can feel a lot more approachable than someone who has known you for an extensive period of time. And not because this person knows about you or cares about you, but because maybe you don't think they're going to judge you because they don't know that what you went through 6 months ago was the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Sometimes it's just easier to say that to someone who hasn't known you, and because people obviously formulate their own opinions, and people will say, for instance, I don't know, like you said about your dog earlier, El, and this is a horrible thought, but imagine you lose your dog, that would probably hit a lot harder than losing someone else, maybe. And some people don't understand that. Do you know what I mean? Especially not when they're your friends and they've maybe lived through these experiences with you, and they're like a bit like, but didn't you get sacked from from some amazing, well-paying job? You didn't give a fuck about that, and then your dog died, and they maybe don't understand it because maybe they're thinking too much into your future. Sometimes a stranger doesn't get that. But ultimately, a friend is always going to be a friend, and they're always going to be there for you, and they're always going to help you. So never feel like you're alone, and never feel like you need to suffer alone, because you don't. Do you know what I mean? You don't. There are so many people, so many different support works. There are phone lines and things like that you can call. I'll put them in the link in the description or something like this as well. I will add them. That you can call. Failing that, you can reach out to the page on Facebook. You can reach out to the mod team. You can reach out in Discord. And if that's easier for you to do, then that's absolutely fine. Do you know what I mean? And I think this is one of the things regarding Normalise It. I completely agree with normalise mental health, but how do you normalise something that everyone suffers from so differently? You know what I mean?
Speaking out about it. Do you know what I mean?
Speaking out about it, but
just being able to, it should be normal for someone to be in any platform or like talk to be able to say to anyone, "I'm not okay. Can you help me?"
Yeah.
But it's not. Do you know what I mean? It's not. And if someone was to post in, let's say on Facebook, I'm not okay, can you help me? 50% of those responses are going to be horrible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those 50% of those responses that are horrible are all that person's going to focus on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what needs to change, in my opinion.
It's funny. So, from a figure of a public figure, from my perspective, words. From my perspective as a public figure, say, obviously, a post that I would put on as the page would probably get 10 times the amount of interaction than that someone has put on their personal profile. And 99.9 recurring % of these people I will never meet will be complete strangers. And the amount of people that reply saying, my DMs are always open, you can always message me. And that's wonderful. I really do appreciate that. And when my granddad passed, I had so much of that. But also, there are always going to be arseholes. Do you know what I mean? Maybe 1% of those comments are going to be people saying, get over it, you fucking bitch. You work in the easiest job in the world. You play games for a living. And now, that is a whole different argument in its own because, you know, unless you are a streamer and you are full-time, you don't necessarily understand the amount of work that goes into it. But that aside, that is the comment that I then focus on. I'm like, fuck you. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, and then I'm also like, fuck me. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, is that really how people see me? That'll be the comment that plays on my mind all day. It really, really will be. There may have been hundreds of nice ones, and that one fucking arsehole. But it's like I said earlier, you're the only person that can change it. And I'll read it. Sometimes I'll reply and I'll retaliate a little bit if I'm more angry than upset. But it's gotten to a point now I just fucking delete them. I'm just like, delete the comment. Maybe even ban them if it's been particularly nasty. But if they can do that to me, then they can do that to other members of my community. And as far as I'm concerned, the community should be a safe place, not just for me, but for everyone else that's involved in it. Anyone else that ever gets involved. And I have had some incredible messages to the page that Pud will have seen as well, in regards to people who have been suffering and the page has helped them. And half of these names I don't even recognize. They're just people that watch frequently and might not ever say anything. And they don't need to say anything. Sometimes it is just about finding that distraction that's going to make it easier for you. And for some people, that's a stream. For some people, it's, I don't know, cooking, cleaning. A big coping mechanism for me used to be riding my bike. And just to kind of give you a perspective, a streamer is still a person. A content creator is still a person. Nick Merckx, PewDiePie, Mr. Beast, all of these big content creators and streamers and stuff that you watch on the internet are still people. They still have emotions and they still have feelings, myself included. And you've got to remember that. A lot of people are very quick to jump on the bandwagon and just say, fuck you, and leave some shitty ass comment on. That might be the only comment that person then thinks about for the next 3 fucking weeks. And I've been in that position, and I have, and it's pissed me off beyond belief. And it's upset me. It really has upset me. I won't show it on stream, or I'll try not to show it on stream anyway. But it does upset you, and that's fine. That's natural. It's okay to be sad, and it's okay to be upset about things like this. Because even though they're a person too, some people are just fucking nasty, and they don't take other people into account. And they're the people that make life harder, but they're also the sort of people that you don't want to surround yourself with. I've had a lot of toxic friendships. I've been with a lot of people. I've been friends with a lot of people who didn't give a fuck about me and would only be there either for their self-gain or because there was no one else there at the time. And as soon as I had a fucking problem, they're gone. Don't surround yourself with those people. Surround yourself with the people that are there for you, that will be there for you, regardless of what you're going through. And they don't need to understand. Do you know what I mean? They really don't. Not one of my friends that has known me for years understands what I have to go through every day, and not many people do. I'm sure if you speak to another streamer, they might not be as open about it as I am. But fuck me, some of the shit that I have to do every single day, it feels menial, it feels stupid, but it's something that I have to do. And then the hate comments can be so hard to overlook sometimes. Do you know what I mean? And they can cause you to have a really shit day. But in the same token, some of the messages that I do receive are like fucking life changing. And that was actually what made me go full time, was the messages from people saying about how much me, the page, the team had helped them. It wasn't the money at the time, because believe you me when I say that at the time of me going full time, the money was fucking shit. A big factor into it for me was the fact that people had been going out of their way messaging us and saying, thank you for helping me. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, I've been having a shit time. You don't know you've done it, but you've helped me so much. And when we set out starting the page and stuff, that was what we wanted to do, make a difference to people's lives, put a smile on someone's face. And it was like what Elle does in terms of his personal support network, but on a bigger scale and for strangers. Because sometimes, like I said, it can be easier to talk to a stranger. And I think for me, to give you a perspective, as like I have suffered from depression. There's been a couple of times where it's been worse than others. And I spent a long period of my life training to be in the Marines for some perspective. And when I was at school, this was when Ben and I sort of first became friends. I went to the doctors, and I don't think I've ever actually spoken about this on stream. So this is new ground for me. I went to the doctors. Well, I was having a really shit time. The year prior, my other granddad the first death that I'd ever really experienced closely had happened of my dad's dad. And it hadn't really hit me as much as I thought it would have, and I kind of felt guilt for that. But we wasn't as close as I was my current granddad. I still loved him to bits, and we were really close when I was younger. But, you know, even as family, you kind of grow apart at some point. And it had never hit me as hard as I thought it would, and I bottled that up for a long time. And then eventually everything caved. I think I split up with an ex-girlfriend. I was like 16 at the time, which felt like the end of the fucking world. And that was also the same time that was also the same sort of time I started smoking, because I remember sitting there in a park with a friend of mine before school, and he pulled out a pack of fags. I was like, you don't smoke? He's like, I was at a party over the weekend. I was like, let me have one. I'd never once touched a cigarette, and I had never once said I wanted to touch a cigarette. It'd never been something that had appealed to me. And he passed me on over, and all of a sudden, everything, I don't know, felt easier. I think it was just that initial bit of Nicky Rush. I was a bit like, wait! You know, but it was, I don't know, that was when I started smoking, but that was also when my life just fucking fell apart, and Ben was there for a lot of that for me. And at that point in time, I know the pair of us were having a tough time, and we were there. But I then, I tried to end my own life. I've never sort of really said that publicly, because it is a scary thing to say, and a lot of people will not understand, and that's fine. I don't expect them to. At the time, I was having a shit time, but my coping mechanism was riding my bike, and when the thing that you love most in the world, you stop enjoying, that's when you know that something's wrong. And at that point for me, I hadn't really cottoned onto that. It was just kind of, I fucking hated everything. I went into the woods one day, and I won't go into detail, but I did try to end my own life. It didn't work out, and I still to this day believe that it didn't work out for a reason. I'm here now, and I'm okay, but at that point in time, I then had to kind of say to my mum, I'm very, very unhappy in my life. And she took me to the doctors, and the doctors prescribed me antidepressants. And I know a lot of people are on antidepressants, but I didn't want it. And the reason I didn't want it is because I'd convinced myself, in the manly man that I was at 16, I'd convinced myself that I was okay. I was like, fuck this, I don't need anything. And I told myself it was artificial happiness. And that is a very wrong outlook, because I know people that antidepressants have saved their lives. But for me, it was something that I was scared of and I didn't want to accept. And taking these tablets was something that it felt like a weakness. And that's not the case. That's really not the case. And I mean, my mum had to force feed me these tablets, because there was fuck all chance I was taking them when I got home. And she'd force feed it to me, go to bed, and I'd fucking ram my fingers down my throat until I puked it back up, because I didn't want it. I wanted to pull myself out of it on my own, and I'm glad I did, because I did. I was force fed tablets for 2 weeks, and I think I actually only ever swallowed one of them without throwing it back up, until I turned around to my mum and I said, I'm done. I'm not doing this. I don't want to do this. And it was kind of the kick up the arse I needed to change myself and change my life, to maybe say, come on, Char, get it together. And that was how I dealt with it. I just made conscious decisions to be better about myself and to deal with things better. But it still kicks in, and it still makes it harder. And I remember about 2 weeks after going, or about a month after going to the doctors, I had a phone call with the Marines for a medical exam. I was part of the way through my application at this point. I'd smashed the first part. I'd done pretty well in the physical, and then it was the medical side of things, or it might have been the other way around, whatever it was. And they said, have you been on any antidepressants or like medication, prescription medication? I was like, I was on antidepressants. I don't think I was on anything particularly strong. But because I'd been on it, it was 2 years from the date of last taking them that you could reapply. And I remember, do you remember this, Ben, when we were sat in the field and I came back and I was in fucking tears? That was shit to me, and that almost set me back to everything that I'd just pulled myself out of. Yeah. And I think at that point we then bunked off the rest of the lessons for the day and went and had a fag. And I say a fag, I mean about 3 packs of fags. But
I was about to say, yeah, it definitely wasn't just fucking one.
But like, Ben knew what I was going through, but I don't think we ever discussed how I felt about it. We never really did discuss feelings as a whole. It was just being there for each other, wasn't it? More than anything.
Yeah, at that point, because we were friends, but I think both of us, I suppose, I mean, this isn't a good thing, by the way, but I think both of us in the back of our minds thought, we can't show weakness here in a very alpha male type of way. I think neither of us really wanted to start divulging into that, or at least part of me didn't want to, because I didn't want to sit there and think, I didn't want you to sit there and think, wow, I don't want to be friends with this depressing cunt. He just has problem after problem.
Yeah, but this is the thing, and it's really easy to think that, especially as a young male as well. And suicide rates in the UK, at least, are incredibly high among young male individuals. I think it's the highest rates. If I'm not sure, I'll check this and put it over the video if I'm wrong. And that's because there is this stigma around being a young man, or a man in general, that showing weakness is something that you shouldn't do. And that's where it becomes like normalized this, because I can safely say that I've been in a shit place before and I never really outright dealt with it because I didn't want to show weakness. I was 16. I had no fucking dependence. No one looked at me for advice or anything. I was just a kid trying to live his life. All I wanted to do was ride my bike, go to school to get that over and done with, and then go and ride my bike. That was it. But admitting to these problems was me saying I'm weak. And it's not. It really isn't. And I cannot stress that enough. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to be shitty and not want to talk to anyone. That's fine. But don't let it rule your life. Like, take a step back at some point and just say, I need to change what I'm doing because it's unhealthy, and it's only you that can change that. But this stigma is real, and it really is still real to this day. 4 years later, 5 years later, 2021, it's still very fucking real. And I can safely say that for me, streaming has been an outlet for my emotions. It's been an incredible place for me to deal with what's going on in my life and in my head. And when my granddad passed recently, I would have dealt with this shit in so much of a different way if it wasn't for stream. But I've openly cried on stream. I've openly admitted to having a shit time. I don't put myself through having a shit time on stream now. I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, if I'm having a bad day, I'm just going to end the stream. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. Because it's not enjoyable to stream as, it's not enjoyable for people to watch as, and I don't want people's pity, but I do want people to understand that streamers, people in the limelight and stuff, still have these days, and B, for anyone else and a streamer and a content creator, whatever you are, whatever your profession, whatever age you are, it's okay to have those days. You know what I mean? It's okay to wake up one morning, feel shit and not want to get out of bed, but you've got to get out of bed. You've got to do it for yourself, because it's so easy to spiral from that point. Do you know what I mean? But for me, anxiety to me, and these things have different meanings for everyone, and I'm going to cover what to me it means, is very much the fear of failure, the fear of not achieving necessarily what I wanted to set out to achieve. And that really, in the last 2 months especially, has been amplified a lot more than it ever has in my life. I spent, like I said, my entire fucking young adult life working towards becoming a Marine, and when it fell through, I was kind of very lost. And I remember being there with Ben at that point saying, I really don't know what the fuck to do. and I had a bit of a early life crisis, because there aren't many people that are that focused on a goal when they're young, and are that dead set on them wanting to achieve that. And for me, it was my everything. It was what drove me every day to wake up, to run, to do what I did. And when it all fell through, it was like, that feels fucking awful. But for me now, I wouldn't consider myself an anxious person, but I definitely, every single time I go live 7 days a week, bar very few days off, every fucking time I press that button, I have this cold feeling come over me and I go nervous for a couple of minutes. I really do, because I don't know what's going to happen that stream. And when the channel first started to blow up, I remember talking to you two about it, Puddinell, regarding how long it was going to last, how long it was going to continue blowing up for, and what was going to happen at the end of it. We went from averaging 30 viewers to 300 viewers. And I adapted very quickly to the new lifestyle of that being a thing. But you kind of also got to have, I'm very much a realist, and I very much had in my head as well. I've watched other people blow up, and I've watched them fall flat on their face. 6 months later. Do you know what I mean? And these things happen. They really do. There are people that have grinded their arse off for years and years and years and years and years, and something clicks and goes wrong, and that's it. And there's not necessarily failure. They were successful for a very long time. Failure comes in different packages. They might have been happy with their success. For me, I want to constantly better myself. I want to constantly better what I do. And at this point in time, what I'm doing is creating content in various different forms, whether that be in the form of a podcast, a video, or a stream, whatever. That's what I'm doing. That is my sole life purpose at this moment in time, and I've dedicated every fucking waking minute to it for months now. But every day I'm scared I'm going to go live and something's going to go wrong, or I'm going to fuck up. Every night I rack my brains over how I can better it, how I can better myself, and how I can better the content. And the amount of, once again, hours of phone calls that I've had with all three of you at various different points about the direction the channel should go, about what's going to happen if it goes wrong. I genuinely don't think I could go back to working in a normal job now, just because I know what it's like to work for myself. I know what it's like to run my own business. I know how, in some respects, freeing, and in some respects also even more restrictive that can be. Especially as a streamer, there is no escape from it. Since I started, I haven't once switched off from it. There has been not a single day that has passed where I haven't been reading comments, been reading messages, been writing ideas down. Even on a day off of stream, you know what I do on my days off? I edit, or I write ideas down, or I'm taking business calls. And now this is more prevalent than it has ever been, just because of how big the channel has gotten to some extent. I still don't consider myself big by any means, but how big it is compared to what it was 6 months ago. There's so much more to deal with, and Pud knows it himself. He does a lot of it with me. The thing is, for me, I'm scared, man. I wake up every morning and I'm like, what if it goes wrong today? What if today is the day that it goes tits up and I fuck up, or something happens and it all goes wrong? What if Facebook decides today it's going to shit itself and cause me a load of problems, or the algorithms are going to go wrong? And like back in September, we did 30-day challenge in August, and I streamed every day in August, which at the time seemed like a task, but I'm pretty sure I've streamed virtually every day in the last month anyway, if not more.
Yeah, it's always a 30-day challenge now.
And we set ourselves
this is month to month of Halford sucks.
We set ourselves a bunch of goals for the channel. We wanted to hit this, that, blah, blah, blah. And they were all realistic. Some of them we didn't hit, and some of them we did hit. But it was an incredible month. It was the best month of streams we've ever had. Financially, it was the most money I'd ever made. It was the most views we'd ever ascertained in 1 month, the most reach. It was an incredible feeling. It was like just being on a fucking high the entire time. The 1st of September rolled round, and we went from a week of 10,000 to 20,000 views for a week to, I think, like 2,000 or some shit, wasn't it, Pud? Something had changed in Facebook, and for whatever reason, loads of content creators were just getting bumfucked, and that's the...
Absolutely slap.
Yeah, they were getting slaughtered. They had gone from... I was averaging something like, what was it, 30 to 60,000 reach most streams? which equated at that point to about 6,000 to 10,000 views on most streams. And it went from that to like 6,000 reach on a stream, and it's like, how has it gone down 80%? It's an 80% decrease. It was fucking scary because at the beginning of that month of August was when I'd quit my job to go full time. And it's like a month in and it's going wrong. And I was like, fuck, do you know what I mean? It was fucking, it was petrifying. And I remember at this point, I spent a lot of time on the phone with Ben at this point to try and combat this. And it's like, just because the reach is down doesn't mean the views have to be as far down. Maybe we could do something more eye-catching. And Ben has done so much graphic design work for me and other such things. How can we use that to our advantage to maybe make the streams more eye-catching, to encourage more people to come in? I think the whole month of September we gained like 100 followers, which was the slowest growth we'd had since we'd started. And that was a shit feeling. It's like, wow, this is my second month of being a full-time streamer. My money's shit. The growth is shit. Is this it? Is this it? And it was like that for a lot of people, and some people still haven't come out the other side of that reach problem yet. Fortunately, we have. We've come out and we're beating what we used to do by a landslide. Even on a bad day, it's better than a good day back then. But holy shit, it was like, it was hard, man. Like, that was shit. It was
certainly a kick in the nether regions.
Exactly the thing. It was like, all I could think about was, is this going to be a repeat of the Marines? Is everything that I've worked for going to fall flat on its face and fucking go nowhere now? And that for me is my personal anxiety. It's just the fear of failure in general. And that I've kind of learned to use it as a motivational force as opposed to a detrimental force. It's really easy when you experience things like that to say, I give up. And I know a lot of people that did give up during this reach period as a small streamer on Facebook. And I was close. I was really fucking close. I tried streaming to other platforms. I tried doing other things. I tried a lot of shit. But ultimately, I didn't give up. I powered on through. We got partnered a couple of months later, and we grew more in 1 month than we had done in the first 13 months of streaming. But that part's completely irrelevant, really. Because now I'm just as scared that what if all of this constant growth falls flat on its face? What if I go back to 10 followers a day instead of 100 to 500 a day? And that's scary, man. It really is. It's like when you get used to this constant growth period and then that slows down, which it has recently as well. The last week has been pretty shit for me due to technical problems and blah, blah, blah. I was having a bit of a shit time with DMR Zone. That was getting to me as well. And it was like, that made things really hard for me to do it. Maybe it made it really hard to enjoy what is a lot of people's dream jobs. I think a lot of people don't actually quite understand what goes into it before they announce it as their dream job, admittedly. But, you know, it
all seems so easy though.
It does seem so easy. On a camera
playing a video game.
Do you remember when we first started it and it was like, it'd be fucking piss. It'd be
fine.
It'll
be fine. Yeah,
fucking hell, Pud.
Jesus, what have we done?
Here's an interesting one for you, Pud. If you knew what we know now, would you have started the page with me all that time ago?
Of course.
But would you have been more or less scared back then?
Oh, I'd have been, if I knew then what we know now, I'd have been absolutely cacking it at the beginning. Like, us going in completely green to it, like maybe talked about it in different ways, and just when you think about it, it's like, yeah, it's going to be so easy. Like, yeah, this probably won't go nowhere, but we can do it for a laugh, which is initially what it started as, wasn't it? Like, let's do it. I'll still remember that first stream we ever did, like it was yesterday. Like, sitting there screaming, playing Fortnite, you're cranking 90s everywhere, and just wrecking it as usual. But like, well, I can't even remember. It wasn't that many. How many views did we have in that first video?
60
views. And now, like, what happens within the first 5 minutes? Like, over 1,000 views now.
We can come out of the first minute of the video and have over 100 people watching, if not more.
Exactly.
The day I did my official apology stream using the DMR, we had 300 people out of the first minute of the video. Which was incredible, admittedly. But
was that the day you peaked at 1.2?
No, that was a different day. That was the most people we've ever had in the first minute of a stream. That much is certain.
That was so funny. Like, I remember that
The conversation leading into it.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
And he's going, no, don't do it. You'll piss everyone off. I'm like, as if that's ever bothered me yet. But and he's like, you're going to upset everyone. I'm like, nah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Thankfully, it went down a treat. But you thought I was going to upset everyone with a car as well, didn't you, with the Jaguar?
Well, this is true.
Sometimes my stupid ideas aren't so stupid because the Jaguar was an incredible stream that day.
Like,
it really
there
was.
is a miniature you and a miniature me sitting on each one of your shoulders. Little Charlie's going, yeah, do it. This will be a laugh. Hood's going, well, Char, if we fuck this up, we are fucked.
I mean, I'm a firmer in high risk, high reward as well. And that's very contradictory to say, speaking on the topic of fear of failure. But I don't know. I've always been like very much, I like to live on the edge. I like to do stupid shit. And
yes,
do you think that helps? Do you think that because you like to live on the edge and you like to do stupid shit and you like the high risk, that because there's so much that fear and that anxiety drives you to not fail?
Yes and no. I take a lot of risks. Everything I do is a risk. Leaving my job was a risk. Doing what I do now is a risk. Every day I went out and rode my bike was a risk. I would consider them calculated risks, though. I would consider them me being able to take a step back and say, maybe I can probably not be as much of a dickhead when I do this. But there have been times...
They're calculated risks, but you are shit at maths.
I mean, the thing is, though, is despite taking a step back before I do a lot of things, I still will go into things very spur of the moment. Do you know what I mean? But I'm a very sporadic person. I very much like to try new shit at the very least. Like, I mean, the whole topic of the podcast came about within about 10 minutes, and 10 minutes after that, we were live. And it was like, well, this is podcast episode 1, motherfuckers. Do you know what I mean? And I think that was probably one of the most spontaneous things we've ever done. And we thought we was going to sit at an entire 3 people the entire time because it was about midnight that we ended up going live.
Yeah, it was like midnight till 3 a.m. or something.
And we held a good amount of people throughout that. Which is
still the most successful podcast yet.
It is the most successful podcast yet. Despite having no topic, no fucking meaning behind it, aside from me and Ben saying, fuck this, let's go.
I'm drunk. Let's go.
Exactly, yeah, we was pissed and it was just like, let's do it. Then we got
we were pissed at the start. That's the worst part.
Well, yeah, we was pissed at the start. By the end of it, we were trashed. Drunk like, I don't know, 3/4 of a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, you drank a lot of whiskey.
I even had to stay up late to watch this. So I having work the next day. He was like, "Please stop this now, Charlie. You're too far gone now, lad. You're gonna say so. You're gonna regret in a minute."
That wasn't a calculated. That was just a risk. Some things are calculated. Okay, I take it back. Some things are calculated. I don't know. Like, I think for me, I use my fear of failure as a very motivational force. It never used to be like that. It used to be if something went wrong, it's like, it's gone wrong, this is the end of the world. Until I realised it's not the end of the world. When the Marines fell through for me and what basically was the thing that could have gone most wrong with my life went wrong, I was kind of a bit lost for a little while. I continued to be a little bit lost. I went full-time at my part-time job where I never said I would go full-time because I knew too many people that have been wrapped up in part-time jobs have gone full-time despite having aspirations. And I knew too many people that have been there for too long of a time. Do you know what I mean? And this is why I'm adamant that I want to get put out of it because it's a very toxic place to work. Because everyone there is very judgmental. But I was adamant I wanted to get out of it. I didn't really know how that was going to be. I looked into like secret services like MI5, MI6, did things like that. Looked into all sorts of stuff. I wasn't ready to sit down behind a desk all day. And ironically, that is actually what I do now. I sit down behind a desk all day. But I didn't start streaming to get out of it. After I broke my leg, I was terrified to get back on my bike. So streaming for me just became kind of what riding was. It became an outlet for my emotions, for me to do something to channel my energy into. And for a long time, we saw no success. We made no money, and that wasn't what it was about, admittedly. But it was fun. It was enjoyable. We was putting smiles on very few people's faces, but on people's faces nonetheless. And eventually, it it started to expand and expand and expand until I became incredibly emotionally invested in it. And I still am to this day. And now this is what I'm scared of fucking up. Do you know what I mean? But I now use that as, I've realized that fear is a very powerful emotion that you can definitely take and use to your advantage. You can definitely take a step back from being scared of something, and it's okay to fail, but it's not okay to fail because you're scared. Don't let fear get in the way. Use fear as a way to push you and make you work harder and make you think, fuck this, I ain't no pussy. Do you know what I mean? I ain't no bitch. I ain't letting myself fuck up myself. Do you know what I mean? There's a thing in I watched Cobra Kai the other day, the sequel to Karate Kid. And then I hadn't watched Karate Kid since I was young. And so I went back and watched all of the films, and there was something that Mr. Miyagi says, and it's something like
wax on, wax off.
No, it's okay to fail to an enemy, but it's not okay to fail. Or it's okay to fail to an opponent, but it's not okay to fail to fear, or something along those lines. And it really rung true with me. It was really like, actually, that's basically what I've been doing. Like, you know, Mr. Miyagi's been that little fucking geezer on my shoulder telling me what to do, and it's just like, don't fail because you're scared. Use that as an opportunity to make you work harder. And I'm a firm believer in, if you work hard for something, it will come to fruition, and you will achieve what you want to achieve. And I've been relatively successful so far in being able to do that. And I'd like to continue using this driving force as an opportunity to achieve more and better myself to what I was 6 months ago. And then in 6 months' time, better myself to what I am now, and so on and so forth. It's constantly, to me, about improving myself, improving what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't stop that constant niggling feeling in the back of your head, like, you're going to fuck up. You're going to fuck up. You're going to fuck up, Char. And I'm like, no. Do you know what I mean? But that's okay to feel that way. It's definitely okay to feel that way.
I want to touch on the anxiety, mainly from your perspective. So reflect back to September when shit went south, second month in. Obviously, we were all there. We were all part of the conversations and things like that. But what got you through September? What made you carry on to get through that reach problem? What made you decide to reach out to Ben and decide to do something different?
For some perspective, back then, we had gone from averaging something like 50 to 60 viewers to averaging somewhere between 10 to 30 for however long the streams were. I tried so many different things. I think what pushed me to try even harder was I'd already fucked up one thing that I'd aspired to be in life. And I wasn't ready to do that again. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't give a shit what happens. And that's why I tried so many different things. Yeah. I tried YouTube. I never tried Twitch. That was the one thing I didn't try because I don't believe in Twitch as a new streamer. I think you don't stand a chance personally, but you can do it. Fair play. You don't stand a chance, Ben.
Excuse me. I'll have you know, I'm scalping your viewers very well so far.
You're doing a pretty good job so far, you cheeky bastard. I think the thing that kept me going was how much effort and emotion, not only I had put into it, that Pud had put into it, that Elle had put into it, that Ben had put into it. And they hadn't even seen like the financial returns at the very least that I had. To this day, I've not paid any of them a wage, but I've compensated them perhaps in other ways, hand jobs. Like I will help them where I can, and they know that they can come to me if they need to lend money and I have it or whatever. But
all them viewers.
Well, I don't know about that. That's the one that I don't want to lend you. But I think the thing that kept me pushing was, like I said, one thing that I'd always worked towards had gone completely wrong already, and I wasn't ready to do that again. Because this one wasn't out of my hands. The first one was kind of out of my hands. It was something I couldn't change. This, I didn't know if I could change it, but I was fucking not going to find out by just giving up. You know what I mean? So I kept going. I kept fighting. We had every night, and normally it's not every night. At that point in time, it was every night I was on the phone to someone at least, brainstorming ideas, spouting pure shit. And it was mostly just a fucking monologue, as most of my conversations go, because I can talk pure shit. But it was monologues that I found incredibly helpful, because it was like, this is what I need to do. And then I'd go out and try it and it would go wrong. This isn't what I need to do. And then it would be something else. And then it would be something else. It would go on and on and on and on and on. And then something happened. I don't really sure what it is, but something happened. And now it's going right again.
Well, wasn't it sort of the end of September, start of October when we had the most epic notifications ever, which really drove
End of October.
working harder.
End of October.
Yeah, it
You,
was
wanna,
end of
you can
October.
tell that story because that started with you.
Well, sorry, yeah, the excited phone call that you got from me.
Give us some. Come on, Pud. Tell us.
So-
Tell us.
Was it?
I know you're as proud of this as I am. So
I know. Sundays always used to be supporter games if you are from the channel and was around then. And sorry, we haven't done them lately, but we're still working on that.
that's
by the
my
way.
bad.
We will get you all back in games with us soon. But it was definitely a Sunday. I know Charlie at the time was just about to say goodbye to Steph and run the stream as he usually would at 4 o'clock. I was doing my usual routine of getting everything, well, say everything, getting some things done before Beck got home on a Sunday. And
Emphasis on some.
Some.
Bare minimum.
some. And I went and booted up the laptop because whilst the stream's live, I like to have all the live feed open, like the Creative Studio and everything. And that Sunday, I opened up and there was a massive banner across the Creative Studio that Facebook have given us. And it says, sign up, become a partner or something along them lines.
We're
And
inviting
I
you
was
to
like,
become a part owner.
that's it. I had to read it 2 or 3 times and I was like, Charlie doesn't actually know about this because he hasn't
Would've
rung
called
me
me.
like an excited little schoolgirl yet. So with that, I rang him. And it took 3 or 4 attempts, which I'm quite pissed off about because he should answer on the first time. What do you want? I'm on the toilet. I take it you haven't turned the computer on yet or open Creative Studio. No. I mean, well, I suggest you should go and do that right now. And I said no more until he heard his little footsteps.
But just tell me, because I'm wiping my arse. Just tell me what it is.
No, open
And he's going, I'm not going to tell you. I
Studio.
went, Pud, just tell me. I need to be mentally prepared if everything's gone wrong. And he goes, it's not gone wrong, it's gone right. I was like, what is it for fuck's sake? And he goes, turns the camera around and shows me this notification. I went, no, you're lying. I went, you're lying. When you found that on Google Images or some shit, when you're lying. I went, nah, and I booted it up and you should have heard the two of us down the phone to each other. It was like 2 excited 8-year-old sisters who had just got a doll's house. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck? And I remember the conversation, and this was I don't know, it became even more real at this point. I don't know about you, Pud. It became even more real that the aspirations that we had joked about at the very beginning of maybe not only me becoming full-time, but being able to employ Pud, it was like, maybe this is an eventuality. Maybe within the next however long, because we put a time limit on it, didn't it? We said in like 2 or 3 years, maybe I might be full-time, and maybe a year after that, we might be able to make you full-time. I went full-time after 8 months of streaming.
Yeah.
Admittedly, that was pushed harder by Rona because I was furloughed and I hated the idea of someone being able to call me up and say, come back to work now. And I was like, no, I don't like that. So I left my job partially because of that, partially because of a load of other things. But now it's looking like, hopefully, by the end of this year, I'll be able to say to Pud, leave your job and come and work for me. Or work alongside me. And that will be an incredible day. That really will be.
That would be amazing.
The day that I can say to you, Pud,
Absolutely.
I'm confident because we put a time limit on it of about 3 years, didn't we? And I think that it's becoming closer and closer to happening every single day.
It's a real possibility now, than it ever was at the start. Like, especially even after we managed to get, I know I'm going to say the first 100 followers, but obviously you got a huge friends list on Facebook, haven't you, Charlie?
I think at the time I've purged a lot of them now because since becoming somewhat successful, a lot of people that I knew a long time ago that hadn't spoken to me in a long time had reached out to me, and I didn't want that kind of manipulation and toxicity as a part of my life. So I went from having a friends list of about 700 people to I think I'm in about 300 and something now. To give you some perspective as to how many people I either realised I didn't like and didn't want around me, or had reached out to me because of success, or some variation of success.
I think it's important to note as well, though, like you say, removing those toxic people from your life. It's about being the bigger person. In
that was actually me being petty as shit, admittedly.
Removing that toxic, like the toxic people, the people that are going to make a negative impact in your life, rather than retaliating. Do you know what I mean?
It was a conscious decision that I made to improve my life, I guess.
Yeah,
I've never looked back at any of the people I've deleted. I was like,
improve your mental state, and improving your mental state is the ideal goal.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly that. But yeah, we did have a bit of a head start because we invited our friends list to come and follow the page and stuff. And I think we had hit 100 followers within a couple of days, and it was like, that's pretty cool.
Within a couple of days, it was after the first evening, I woke up to 100 people following the page.
Well, irrelevant, but...
that was the point in my head. I knew this was going to go somewhere. Didn't know how fast it would, but at the time I thought, I don't know of anybody who could start a page and before they've even done their first live stream have 100 people following that page.
I don't know. There's a caveat to that, really, isn't there? It's like, it's easy to invite your friends list and people just think, what's this? And press the button and then they've liked it. I think maybe out of the 100 people that liked the page that were my friends, maybe 10 of those have ever actually interacted with the stream in the last 15 months.
It's a great position to be in, just to have 100 people to turn around and say, yeah, go on then.
Eventually, yeah.
I'll say yes. It may not come of anything, but
maybe, maybe. I don't know, but
for sure, if I made a page and sent every person on my friends list an invite to like that page, I'd be lucky to get 20.
You'd have me, baby. What more could you want?
Well, mate, I kind of stand back on this, but I kind of built this with you, so we're all right, mate. Don't worry.
But like, I don't know. At that point wasn't when I thought something would come of it. It was when we started having people come back regularly that it kind of was like, maybe we are making an impact. And then it was like the messages of like, you've helped me so much without even knowing. That kind of was another milestone in my head. I don't know. I think leading back to when the Reach stuff hit, having 10 people in watching at once is still a minivan full of people that you're potentially having it's 10 people is 10 people. That could be 10 people having a really shit day, and you going live could be what makes their day. You don't know. Just because you don't have a big audience doesn't mean you're not having a big impact.
No.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
And that was
the reason I started following your page. Obviously, after we had our little interaction about the tournament and such, but your core values and Jay and Becca were the reason I started following.
Yeah. Stop it! Don't blow his ego up. But I don't know. Like, fear of failure is something that has plagued me for a long time, and will probably continue to plague me forever. I've just learned to harness that and utilize it in a way that is helpful, as opposed to in a way that is detrimental to myself. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if any of you have had any sort of different experiences with anxiety at all in different ways, maybe.
I don't know. There's like an anxiety to fail, but that's kind of present in like everyone's life. Do you know what I mean? And I think avoiding it. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people just avoid it.
Yeah. What about anxiety about looks? Because you said earlier when you had your tooth and stuff.
Yeah, that's quite a tough one, I guess. Yeah, like it was weird for me. Like I went from because I'd never really liked to smile for like a camera photo. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't like if I put on a fake smile, it looked fucking horrible. But my natural smile looked alright, quite like that. Do you know what I mean? And I used to smile all the time because a smile goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I learned that quite young. Do you know what I mean? As soon as I started working in schools, I used to smile and I used to say good morning to everybody every morning because you never know if that interaction is going to perk up someone's day or not. So I just used to do it. And then after I lost my tooth, and like you would smile random people, or it was mainly like parents and things I was trying to hide from, because I'm almost like a representation of the school, and I didn't want, because it looks I'm going to use like rough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doesn't look professional in a way to have a missing tooth, so I didn't want that to have a knock-on effect on the school. Not that the school was in a nice area anyway, but I won't talk about that. And it was like I started
trying to provide a good enough education to their children, so you got a set of system, haven't you? So
well, that's the thing. Like as a parent, you never really get to know a teacher, do you?
Not really.
You only know what your kids say, and like obviously kids are pretty what's the word?
They're quite scarce, really.
Yeah.
They'd tell you teacher's name, maybe what they did and things like that, but very little information. I suppose the most interaction you kind of have with a parent is a pick up and drop off, and parents even. I mean, there are certain, parents and children where you have more interaction because they're, maybe they have extra needs, or they're, had a particular bad day, or whatever it may be. But one of the things that I used to do was I used to stand on what we used to call the door. I basically used to let the children in before they would go to their classrooms, in that kind of early club, breakfast club kind of environment. So I would be, I would be on the door. So I would be letting kids into the school from 8 o'clock to 5 to 9.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I would meet parents from every year group across our school, and I started making a conscious effort to not show my teeth for quite a long. And eventually, I perfected it. Do you know what I mean? I can still do it to this day. And then at one point, because I was embarrassed. Do you know what I mean? I was embarrassed about not having a tooth, and I kind of that linked in with the depression of eventually not caring about how I looked and how I was. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like,
it went from one extreme to another.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was kind of like it was anxiety not to wear the plate because I wanted to look kind of normal, but in a sense I kind of wanted to rebel against it. It was like, well, fuck the rest of you. You made me like this. This is my normal. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of that kind of counterbalance. I'd probably say I'd spent about 6 months, probably like self-conscious about the tooth before I made a very conscious decision that fuck everybody else. If you don't like it, then look away.
Anything else to add, lads? Experiences, anything like
that? What with anxiety?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's the anxiety of failing, and when it comes to as a student, I can speak here. Every assignment that turns up, regardless of how small it is contributing to the final grade, it could be like 5%, but every time one turns up, I'll still shit myself about it. Even if I know I'm going to absolutely smash it and it's going to be one of the easiest things ever, and a bit like you with streaming where it almost comes naturally, I can still sit there and go, oh my God, okay, I've always got to like pull myself together for this. Which is a weird one. And I'm not sure if I'll ever really get over that. But I suppose it keeps me on edge while I'm doing whatever it is. So I suppose to a degree it is helpful. The only other one that I have, which is weird, is anxiety when it comes to relationships. And that's not necessarily because I've had bad relationships in the past. It's because in the past, I have been an absolute bellend. I won't go into what I've done, but I haven't exactly been a nice person for some of them. And so I think there's a niggling little feeling in the back of my head, like, am I going to fuck this one up as well? Which then leads me to push the other person away, which then obviously just is a detriment to the relationship in the end as well, because all it does is upset the other person. Then I feel like a dick for upsetting them, comfort them, and the cycle kind of repeats. Makes sense. Obviously, there isn't exactly a way of fixing that aside from believing in myself, I suppose, and believing that I won't be a bellend.
I got you kind of like actively work towards it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I like to think that I've learned from my mistakes, as it were. Because I mean, obviously, some were worse than others, should we say? But I like to think that I'm working towards being a better version of me. I like to think that's the ultimate end goal here. The ultimate end goal for everyone really is taking who you were and saying, right, well, am I better than who I was a month ago?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you can say yes, then that's a good thing. If you can say no, then I think it's not worth being ridiculously hard on yourself, because then it's worth looking at it in perspective and saying, right, well, last month, was I in debt? Was I, about to lose my job or something? No. Am I going through that now? Yes. So at that stage, it's not worth being really hard on yourself if you haven't necessarily done everything perfectly since the last time you took a look at yourself. I think it's worth keeping a positive outlook on it and thinking, right, well, shit situation, but I know I can do better, kind of thing.
But I think what I want to add to that is what is perfect, because perfect
is
very much one of is perspective, isn't it? Really, like I will edit a video and I will sit there for, okay, I'm not going to use a video, I'm going to use something different. I used to be a commissioned artist. I did a lot of artwork either for myself or people paid me to do it. I'm very, very self-critical. It shows in my streams. It used to show my artwork. I've not really done much recently. But something that I would show to someone and they would say, that's perfect, because they don't necessarily know the hours of erasing and the hours of prep work and the fucking 400 copies that I threw away before I eventually was semi-happy with it. To me, it was like, that's not perfect. Do you know what I mean? What is perfect? I don't think perfect is a concept, really, isn't it? But it's a false concept. It's not about doing something perfectly. It's about doing something to the best of your personal ability, because that is different for everyone. And something that you've done that is incredible for you may not feel as incredible to someone else, but that doesn't matter, because it's about bettering yourself. Eventually, if you keep working on yourself and working on your version of perfection, you'll never reach it, because nothing is perfect. But you'll get somewhere close to where you want to be, and that to me is like a driving force, and I think other people should try and use that as well, I guess, because it's quite beneficial.
But keep it personal, because your end goal for the next month might be, okay, I want to earn this much money or whatever. Not you particularly. I mean, one's end goal for the end of the month. Maybe, I want that promotion, I want this, I want that. And that could be their end goal. But your end goal could literally be, as simple as that, like couch to 5K thing.
Yeah.
That went around a while ago. Like to some people, people who are at the gym 24/7, 5K running is absolutely nothing to them, and they do it as a warm up. To me, who can't run more than 100 meters unless it's to go and buy some booze, that's a big thing. If a month down the line I could run that 5K to buy nicer booze from a different shop, then I would count that as an achievement rather than drinking the bloody paint thinner that I seem to be drinking all the time now. So I think keeping it personal is a good idea. Don't relate your goals and achievements to other people's, because I think you're going to take on a very unhealthy outlook.
100%.
We also
because there's
promote drinking thinners, Ben.
Don't drink white spirit.
It works well for poor uni students, I'll have you know.
Yeah, everybody's at different stages in their life. You have to compare yourself to where you're at in your life and where you were in your life.
Yeah.
Where you want to be as well. You've got to think about the future too. It's not just about
what
you have achieved. It's about what you want to achieve.
And where you want to go.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the only comparison you should ever have.
Yeah, 100%.